Good morning, Nigeria, and I make you welcome. This is Enterprise Weekend, reaching you from Enterprise Television from the economic hub and heart of Nigeria. My name is Henry Ikwebike, and this is Enterprise Television. We'll kick off today with our newspapers, and right after that will be our main conversation also. Please do well to be part of what we do. Have a say in what we say. You can always find us, reach us when you visit us at EnterpriseTVNews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at EnterpriseTV7. We're very so honored to have with us, joining us via Zoom from Lagos State, Nigeria, Barrister Fred Nzako, a barrister at law, public affairs analyst, and a development communicator. Good morning to you, Barrister, and welcome to Enterprise Weekend today.
Thank you, Henry. Good morning to our dear esteemed viewers.
All right, thank you so very much, everyone, especially for Nigerians in the diaspora that are watching right now. We welcome you, and we hope that you would enjoy this show today. But let's start with the first daily on our desk. It's coming from the Saturday Punch newspaper. Big story: fresh Ebola outbreak. Federal government tightens border control. And we have two riders to that particular story. Government reactivates portal, employs more surveillance staff, and WHO releases $500,000 as pandemic kills 16 in DR Congo. And on the bottom strip, we have Omoada, how Igbo lands powerful sisterhood terrify women and silence men. And also we have on the top strip of the same newspaper, which I think would be our talking point for today, from sit-at-home mastermind to prisoner, rise and fall of Simon Ekpa. Barrister, I love us to talk on this particular matter. It's very sensitive, especially those from the southeast of Nigeria. It's one topic lots of people don't want to talk about. It's either because they are scared of talking about it, or they don't want to go through the harrowing kick and pull, push and feel effect from people on social media. But I'd love us to talk about it. What's your take on Simon Ekpa, who started out as someone who people listened to and becoming what he is today?
Well, my take is the take of most Nigerians who express discomfort with the growing tendencies of insecurity in the southeast. And many Nigerians feel that the activities of Mr. Simon Ekpa and his cohorts have exacerbated the insecurity situation in the southeast. And when Mr. Simon Ekpa was arrested by the Finnish government and went on trial, people statistically noted that the state of insecurity seemed to have lessened a little bit. And now that he has been fully tried and sentenced, that the state of insecurity in the southeast would naturally continue to dwindle. But we also understand that in the group of Mr. Simon Ekpa, that they have immediately raised a successor that will be holding the fort for him while he served his terms in Finnish prison. What is critical and most important is that, one, the Finnish government has done what Nigerian government could not do by expeditious trial of anybody who is accused of any crime. Two, ensure that there is need for government to be bold when it comes to the issue of trying people accused of terrorism, both at national or at international level. And three, to ensure that no stone is left unturned towards enhancing the security situation for the people. And if that will include arresting and trying people who are complicit in an insecurity situation in the country, so be it. And it now begs the question that 400 names of terrorist sponsors were sent to federal government under President Bola by another country, United Arab Emirates. And up to today, even their names are not even having whispered in low tones, not to talk of bringing them to the public domain, not to talk of even trying to arrest or try them. So it is a very sour realization, and gives impression that the Nigerian government is not serious about issues of insecurity, and not serious about providing security for the people, and not serious about attacking bandits and terrorists. If the least they could do, they have not been able to do. Yes, recently about 9 people were arraigned on terror charges in Abuja. Nigerians are saying that it is good, but it is not enough. We want more intensive actions, both operationally and legally, and both in the field of war, in the theater of war, and in the courtroom, to ensure that those who are associated with terrorism and terror sponsor should have the long arm of the law catch up with them. Because if we don't do that, there's no way we can ensure the security and of life and property of the people.
It's a very, very true, Barrister. And I think it's very important that we look at this particular matter. But if you may, Barrister, I would love us to maybe drive this to the southeast of Nigeria. You are an Igbo man, just like I am. And I'd love to ask you this. The sudden empathy of the Igbo people for cause like that of Simon Ekpa, it's not usual. This used not to be who the Igbo people are. The Igbos are Republicans in nature, which means if someone tells you that this is black, you mustn't just agree with him. You have to question why that is black. That is who the Igbo man is. But this sudden empathy for a cause that is directionless, where do you think that is coming from? And how can we possibly end that to going back to who we are as Igbo people who are Republicans in nature?
If you use the expression sudden empathy, I think it is it does not express the true reality on ground. Because when you say sudden empathy, it gives impression as if a majority of the Igbos are empathetic to the plight, in quote, so-called plight of Mr. Simon Ekpa. But I don't think that is the true picture. The true picture is that the Igbos generally, and when we say the Igbos, we're talking about the majority, because in every situation, there will be majority and there will be minority. But when you want to refer to a people, you likely will refer to the majority of the people. So, majority of the Igbos are not empathetic to the actions of Mr. Ekpa and his cohorts, because their actions are not in the best interest of the Igbos. They are obviously not. The Igbos, yes, the Igbos want to be recognized and want justice. They want equity. They want to be given fairness in the Nigerian environment, in the Nigerian state and the Nigerian polity. But the Igbos generally do not want violence of any nature, violence of any manner. Don't forget that the Igbos waged a 3.5-year-old war brought to his doorstep by the then federal government. The first shot was released by the troops of the federal government and not by the troops of the Biafra as it then was. So it's historical that federal government took the war to the Igbo heartland. And of course, there is an adage that says, no matter how meek a lamb is, when you take a war to its doorstep, it will at least try to push back, even if it means jumping up to avoid such a war. So the Igbos jumped up to avoid the war, and when the war could not be avoided, they had to stand their ground to fight for 3.5 years with massive loss of lives and properties, and even socio-political position of the Igbos in the Nigerian state. So an average Igbo person who experienced that war or who has read about the incidences of the war will not in any way want such war to come back to Igbo land. So what we are asking for as a people is equity, fairness, and justice. Take away this orchestrated, intentional marginalization of the Igbos by successive governments of Nigeria. And we will then integrate, and because that will bring the full-fledged integration that we are asking for. And yes, incidences that led to that war, that we are not ready to war again, because we have experienced it, and we don't want it again. But we want a Nigeria that works, and that is the yearning of most Igbos. The people at the other end, who are the minority of the Igbos, who possibly may be sympathetic to Simon Ekpa's cause, they are not only said to be an absolute minority, but their actions do not reflect the yearnings and aspirations of the general Igbo race.
Thank you so very much. Now let's move on to other matters, and this is coming from the Guardian newspaper for today. South, an oil-rich region with dung hills of abandoned projects, and I have about 6 South governors from Diri to Siminalayi Fubara who made the front page right here. And Barris, I'd love us to take our discourse to the South region. When you compare the amount of money, 13% derivative, from oil, this is of course made available to the South governors. Would you say that in comparison to the economic infrastructural development in the state, that these governors should be given opportunity to serve onwards?
When you say you give an opportunity to serve, it depends on the people to decide. Election will come in 2027 if the people of the federal states feel that their federal governors have done well, those who are deserving of re-election, then it is left to them to decide. But as far as I'm concerned, with respect to the issues canvassed on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, that the region is filled with a lot of, it describes it as a dung hill of uncompleted projects. Yes, it is. And it is very unfortunate that the golden goose that laid the golden hen is not allowed to make use of the egg that is as laid. The golden goose that laid the golden egg is being shortchanged, both internally and externally. Internally, because the governors of the region are not doing their utmost. They cannot deny that. It's a straightforward issue. Externally, because even the little that is coming to them, little input that is coming to them, you still have to see the undue influence of external factors. And let's all look at the
All right, I think we have a little bit of a glitch from Barrister's end. We believe he will join us in very soon. And we're, of course, talking about the South region, the oil-rich South region of Nigeria, and why it is not up to par to what other regions across the world with lots of deposits of oil are able to accomplish. There's so much to talk about that, because from Bayelsa to Port Harcourt, that is Rivers State, you hardly would see what shows that those states are really oil main stations in Nigeria. That is places where you see lots of oil deposits in that part of the country. With respect to the development you see there, infrastructural growth you see there, human development index you see there, and lots of other indices that show that they are really up to par when it comes to their value delivery in the state. There's so much to talk about, and I hope a barrister would join us in no time when he gets his own end of the connection ready. This is still Enterprise Weekend. We'll go for a quick break and we'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere.
My people, the elections are around the corner. Before you know it, it will be 2027. But before then, for you to partake in the election, you must have your voter's card. And for you to have your voter's card, you must register. INEC has rolled out the drums. We call this program Continuous Voters Registration. And it is for you to register. This is to do that if you want to vote. And it's important that you take part in the process of voting. Just go there, give them your name and your address. That's all. And of course, they will capture you, take your picture, and that's all. You are done. Within 5 minutes, you are done. And after that, when the time comes, they call it claims and objection time. That's when you look at it. They will paste all the results or the names of those that have registered all over the places. You will go to the place you register, check your name that is well spelled, and the information you've given them correct. And that's all. After some time again, they will tell you that your voter's card is ready. You go and pick it. That is all. Be a good Nigerian citizen. Partake in the process, because it's a duty imposed on you by Section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as a good citizen. And you will be better off by voting, because you have your mind that yes, you voted right. I'm Wale Ogunade, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and President Voters Awareness Initiative. Thank you. My people, the elections are around the corner. Before you know it, it will be 2027. But before then, for you to partake in the election, you must have your voter's card. And for you to have your voter's card, you must register. INEC has rolled out the drums. We call this program Continuous Voters Registration. And it is for you to register. This is to do that if you want to vote. And it's important that you take part in the process of voting. Just go there, give them your name and your address. That's all. And of course, they will capture you, take your picture, and that's all. You are done. Within 5 minutes, you are done. And after that, when the time comes, they call it claims and objection time. That's when you look at it. They will paste all the results or the names of those that have registered all over the places. You will go to the place you register, check your name that is well spelled, and the information you've given them correct. And that's all. After some time again, they will tell you that your voter's card is ready. You go and pick it. That is all. Be a good Nigerian citizen. Partake in the process, because it's a duty imposed on you by Section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as a good citizen. And you will be better off by voting, because you have your mind that yes, you voted right. I'm Wale Ogunade, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and President Voters Awareness Initiative. Thank you. My people, the elections are around the corner. Before you know it, it will be 2027. But before then, for you to partake in the election, you must have your voter's card. And for you to have your voter's card, you must register. INEC has rolled out the drums. We call this program Continuous Voters Registration. And it is for you to register. This is to do that if you want to vote. And it's important that you take part in the process of voting. Just go there, give them your name and your address. That's all. And of course, they will capture you, take your picture, and that's all. You are done. Within 5 minutes, you are done. And after that, when the time comes, they call it claims and objection time. That's when you look at it. They will paste all the results or the names of those that have registered all over the places. You will go to the place you register, check your name that is well spelled, and the information you've given them correct. And that's all. After some time again, they will tell you that your voter's card is ready. You go and pick it. That is all. Be a good Nigerian citizen. Partake in the process, because it's a duty imposed on you by Section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as a good citizen. And you will be better off by voting, because you have your mind that yes, you voted right. I'm Wale Ogunade, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and President Voters Awareness Initiative. Thank you. my people.
Thank you so very much for being back. And just before we went for that short break, we were talking on matters of the South region on our news papers analysis segment, and with Barrister Fred Nzako, who is my guest for today. Thank you so very much, Barrister, for being back.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so you were speaking to the issue of the dunghills of abandoned projects in the South region just before we had that little break.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the reasons are not far-fetched because if you look at the NDDC, for example, NDDC has left a lot of projects abandoned and uncompleted. Sometimes the people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of these projects will complain of undue influence from Abuja. And even though it is called the Niger Delta Development Commission, but the commission is largely directed from outside the Niger Delta. But if you now keep that aside, today we now have a Ministry of Niger Delta, which eventually everything has now snowballed back to regional development agencies. So there has been continuously changes in operational dynamics of Niger Delta development authorities and the commissions that are in charge, starting from the era of UNPADEC down to the era of NDDC, Ministry of Niger Delta, and the rest of them. Today we are talking about regional development agencies. But what is critical and most important is that the funds given to Niger Delta development agencies are not adequately utilized. So also the funds given to the governors under the 13% derivative provision of our law are not adequately utilized. Otherwise, if the governors would learn to avoid white elephant projects and embark on projects that they have the finances to complete, and projects that will really touch the life and welfare of the people, then we will have a limited number of abandoned projects in the Niger Delta area. So the South generally, the 6 states of the South, Edo Delta, Rivers, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, should ensure that they make adequate use of the 13% derivation that they receive. Because each time there is sharing of money from the federation account, the states of the South have received the largest. But at the end of the day, you begin to ask, where are all these monies deployed? Because you hardly will see the effect on ground. There is too much politicking in the South region. And that is why even if anybody wants to run for presidential election, a lot of the chunk of the war chest, financial war chest utilized, come from the South, the oil-bearing states. And there's something that came to some minds of the analysts, that even though the South region is the oil-bearing region of Nigeria, yet the management of the oil sector hardly will be in the hands of the people from that region. Today, the two major refineries, private refineries in Nigeria, are owned by people from the north. Dangote and Alhaji Rabiu, the Boa Group and the Dangote Group. The Ministry of Mineral Resources, Petroleum Ministry, usually manned by people from outside the region. The NNPC and its agencies that are in charge of Nigerian oil assets are usually manned by people outside the region. So some people say that it is an act of political balancing, but the people of that region are saying it is an act of deprivation and marginalization. Because when they are not in charge of the exploitation of their region, they are not also in charge in the management of what has been exploited. They are not in charge in final full control of the funds set out for the development of that region, but they are in charge of the 30% derivation. Yeah. So even if they cannot control what goes on in the ministry or in NNPC or in the refineries or in NDDC and all those other agencies, They are in charge of the 13% that has come to them. And that is why when politicians want to talk, they say, go and ask your governors what they are doing with the 13% derivation. But in summary, I can tell you without fear of equivocation that the people of Niger Delta are not receiving what is due to them as a people. They may be shortchanged by the governments at the state and the local levels. They are also shortchanged by the government at the federal level.
Very, very true, because this is very so evident. Let's take Delta, for example. You know, there is a clarion call for the Delta state government to ensure that dividends of democracy gets to the people, especially for the Ndukwa people. There's this campaign, Light Up Ndukwa, for decades now. Some parts of that state had been deprived of electricity, even whilst the same electricity is produced, you know, at their backyard. And this, you know, speaks to what you talked about. They might not be in control at the center, but the 13% they've been given to, the big question is, what are they able to do with that? And Barrister, this takes us to another story very connected, and this is Nigeria will be better off without politics of pre-vandalism. And that's coming from Iwa. And I had the opportunity of taking a look at that particular word, which was coined by Richard Joseph, a professor of international history and politics from Northwestern University. Barrister, this is very synonymous to what you've been talking about, where politicians use the money meant for their constituencies to themselves. Speak to me, please.
Yes, it is one of the major challenges of our current democratic experience. Because if you look at the developments in Nigeria in the early 60s, after independence, juxtaposed that with development in Nigeria when we came to the Second Republic of 1979, that was terminated in 1983, then fast forward to development in Nigeria from 1999 to date, it goes without argument that Nigeria continues to slide downwards. And then the degradation in policy, in programs, in achievements have become very geometrical in nature, to the extent that politicians no longer care. They no longer give a hoot about the feelings of the people, the complaints of the people, and the need for them to serve the people and deliver the dividends of democracy, which we very simply say that the dividends of democracy is good governance. And good governance comes with it many positives that will lift the lives of the people in terms of employment, healthcare, education, ease of doing business, enjoyment of life, life expectancy itself, and then the reduction of stress in the daily living of Nigerian people. The life expectancy of Nigerians keep going down. Sometime in the 60s, it was 65 years. In the 70s, it came down to 2 years, and in the 80s. Hey, the life expectancy of Nigeria is between 45 and 48 years. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the incidences of longevity is not only, Nigerians are not intentional about it, because you cannot be talking about increased life expectancy in an environment where the healthcare facilities are not available. 3-4 days ago, a doctor was reported to have slumped and died working 72 hours on a shift in a hospital. There's a young resident doctor. And what he tells you is that, and they just talked about it as if it is a normal happenstance. It is not normal. The doctor should, and let me use this opportunity to say this, that young doctor should be treated as a hero who has laid down his life for the life of his fellow countrymen and women. He should be given national honors, and the family should be compensated. Compensation is not enough for his life, but at least if the family receives some compensation, those who are his beneficiaries, who are looking up to him, his dependents, those who are his dependents, those other ones who are hoping that his continuous progress in the medical profession will be trained, educated, and then made life better for them, are now be left in the cold. And that is the whole essence of not allowing his life to go in vain. Just like we celebrated Stella Ameyo Adedepo, this young doctor must and should be celebrated. And it will not only end there. It will be a turning point in our medical medical and healthcare provision for the people of Nigeria. What it simply tells you is that the country is not doing well in every aspect of our socio-economic life. Even in our political life as a nation, we are not doing well. And how can we do well? We need to sit down and readdress all these issues and come back to a reality of what we should do as a nation.
Very well said, Barrister. From one issue to another, my last question, and this is still from the Guardian newspaper for today. Tinubu should overhaul NTA as a voice of Africa. Barrister, for some of us that had live, you know, from the 70s and the 80s, we grew up watching the NTA. Very fantastic station, you will agree with me. Great programs that it had, you know, nurturing program for young people, lads coming up at that time. Today, NTA is a shadow of itself, and a major reason is because of the bureaucratic tendency that we've seen within the NTA and the lopsided not getting the right people to do the right job. What's your take really on the NTA? Are you disappointed with what you see today? NTA should be competing with the BBC and Al Jazeera, but of course it is not. It is playing below par. Local league, some people would say. That is what NTA is playing right about now. What's your take, please?
NTA is a huge disappointment, a huge one, because one, it is not competing with any organization. It is supposed to be competing with other international organizations around the world in terms of content, in terms of programs, and in terms of delivery of adequate information to the Nigerian people. But you now look at the establishment of NTA and the reason behind such organization. The NTA has been cornered as a medium of communication of the federal government. So, in a bid to sing the songs of the federal government down to the beating and the rhythm played by the Ministry of Information representing the federal government, NTA now became almost a very big disappointment for people who are expecting that NTA should lead the way. Yes, it is supposed to broadcast programs and policies of government, but it is also supposed to be a gatekeeper for our national development, especially on the side of morals, morality, justice, equity, and fairness. Because NTA should not be allowed, or should not allow itself to be a tool of political propaganda in the hands of the federal government. Because if it does so, what has happened to Nigerian Airways? What has happened to Nigerian Shipping Line? What has happened to some other national agencies will say happened to NTA? That NTA is still alive is because it is receiving direct sponsorship from federal government and receiving advertisement from federal government agencies. Otherwise, NTA would have long died. If you expose NTA to compete with other private media stations in the country, NTA will not be able to pay its staff. But the staff of NTA are paid from IPPIS platform, from federal government. So whether their content is rich or not, whether they perform or they don't perform, they don't care. And that is why they are not interested in competing with other international media organizations around the world. The organizations that should even be afraid of NTA, because Nigeria has a large population of over 220 million people. And what it means is that as a single unit organization in charge of federal government information and the rest of them, NTA has branches in the 36 states of the country and the FCT. So if they leverage on their tentacles and their capacity, they should be able to be doing very well. But again, the filthy, lucrative hands of the government have not allowed NTA to breathe. They need to struggle to maintain their sanity, and they need to ensure that they deliver what is best for Nigeria. Even if they don't compete with other local stations, let them have unique, because they have a unique position. Yeah. Let them have unique stations that will work on the morality of the country and ensure that we build a better society. We need to have a news line that will go to every nook and cranny of the country and bring out things that were wrongly done, so that the society will begin to shape up. But the news line of today has become like an average musician that will continue to sing the song of Ismail Masters like a puppet. That is what has cost NTA the honor and integrity and the confidence of the people that it once enjoyed in the past.
Very true, Barrister. We all remember Frank Olize. We all remember Cyril Stober. We all remember Abike Dabri, you know, a wonderful journalist, but of course she is no longer what it appears to be now. Now, these are reputable people that have, you know, given NTA the face that it has. Unfortunately, that is not what we see today. Leadership tussle here and there. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu allowed in for a new Director General, Femi Pedro, and we just learned that he has been removed again, and the former DG has resumed the seat. That is Stalihu Debos. And that is some of the things that we see. You know, having the wrong people, you know, doing the right job will never get us to the position that we hope to be. And just to let you know, folks, that Barrister will still be here to take us on our main conversation in a bit, and that is when we return. Battle to unseat Tinubu, a national consensus, not a northern conspiracy. That's coming from Tambuwal. That in a bit is still Enterprise Weekend. Please don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back. All right, can we run? Back, this is still Enterprise Weekend, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's head straight to our main conversation for today. Former Sokoto State Governor and Senator representing Sokoto South, Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, has declared full support for President Bola Tinubu's push for the establishment of state police, describing it as a vital to addressing Nigeria's worsening insecurity. Speaking on politics today on Channels Television, Tambuwal painted a bleak picture of security in Sokoto, especially in his senatorial district, where he said bandits have taken control of many local governments. He noted that federal police officers posted far from their home region often lack knowledge of local terrain and language, weakening security efforts. He argued that the state police, alongside more recruitment, better welfare packages, and modern tools, are urgently needed. Tambuwal denied knowledge of claims that the federal government is paying bandits, dismissing such allegation. However, he appealed to the president for decisive action to curb banditry in Sokoto, warning that villages like Shagari, Tureta, and Bundiga have already been overrun. On politics, Tambuwal reaffirmed his loyalty to the People's Democratic Party and said the opposition must unite to defeat Tinubu in 2027. He stressed that without coalition, efforts between leaders like Atiku, Obi, and Kwankwaso, Tinubu's reelection would be difficult to stop. I still have with me Barrister Fred Nzako. Thank you so very much, Barrister, for hanging on.
Many thanks.
Thank you. So, Barrister, this is contradictory. He started with praising the president, and he ended with saying that he desires that the president would go, and that it is a national consensus, not a northern conspiracy. What's your take on Tambuwal? Where does it stand at this particular point? Because Nigerian politicians, you can decipher where they stand. Today they are this, next day they are another thing. What's your take on Tambuwal's assessment and submission?
There are two issues that are raised in your prologue regarding Tambuwal's interview granted on national television. Issue number one was his stand on state police, and he gave it 100% support. He said he supports Mr. President's push towards the establishment of the state police. The second issue was the issue of 2027 election, which is on the realm of politics and the re-election bid of Mr. President, and whether Mr. President will succeed or not, and if we will be removed, and what needed to be done to ensure that he does not get re-elected. Let's take it one after the other. On the issue of state police, we at the Movement for Nigeria Restructuring, we started talking about state policing, the requirement for state police, since year 2000. We have presented lectures and delivered several write-ups and articles and spoken extensively about the need for state policing structure as one of the anchors of restructuring in Nigeria that will be anchored on true fiscal federalism and allow all the component parts of this country to develop not only at their pace, but in competition with other parts. Today, we have 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria, which are there for administrative convenience, but are yet to be made part and parcel of our constitution or any of our laws. And we have continued to ask, why can't we draft the 6 geopolitical zones into 6 administrative centers, in which case, instead of having 36 states, we will now have, if you call it 6 provinces, call it 6 states, call it 6 zones, call it anything, but let it have administrative structure such that you will no longer have 36 houses of assembly. You will no longer have 36 judiciary. You will no longer have 36 civil service bureaucracy. Everything will be reduced to 6. A lot of money will be released for capital projects, and very little will be used for recurrent expenses of government. And it will also positively affect our political balancing in terms of who becomes the president of a country at any point in time. Every zone in Nigeria is blessed with abundant resources. The human resources are there, but under the soil of every zone, there are quantum natural resources. It's either it is solid minerals of any nature or type, or it is petroleum resources, or it is agro-allied resources, that there is no zone that is left without natural blessing that can sustain that zone and make it grow and develop. Now, tied to this call is the call for establishment of state police. It will be a lot easier for state policing structure to be very robust if we have 6 zonal administrative structures, so that, assuming you call it South-South zone, and you have a premier of the South-South, you have South-South police, and you have the structures that will support the growth and development of the South-South. The same for Southeast, the same for all other zones in the country. And the issue about state and local government relationship would naturally solve itself, because today, Kano as a state has 44 local governments. Lagos has only 20. The population of Lagos is more than the population of Kano. And the local government, it takes money from Federation Account Allocation Committee. What it now means is that the money that Kano gets from each local government will be more than double the one given to Lagos. But the responsibility of taking care of the people in Lagos is more than that of Kano. So these are the lopsidedness in our constitution that has not allowed this country to to unite and to grow and develop. But if you adopt the zonal structure in leadership and zonal structure in politics and everything about Nigeria, the South will be on its own. If the South likes, they can create 100 local governments. That's their business. If North West wants, they can have 1,000 local governments. That's their business. And I tell you that if they stop drawing money from federation account, they will even begin to shrink their bureaucracy. They are enlarging the bureaucracy because the bureaucracy in every state and every part of the country is serviced from the federation account. And where does the money that for the federation account come from? Richly from the oil resources that is derived from the South, and terminal and tangentially from the VAT resources and from other non-oil sectors of the country. And when you begin to look at the contribution of each zone towards the collectivity of the pool of the federation account, you will now begin to have the politics of the fact that some zones get more than they give. And that does not enhance unity, neither does it enhance development. And that is why some leaders are not interested in even thinking, not to think of thinking out of the box. And that's why at all times, leaders at the state levels are waiting for handouts that will come from federation account. The internally generated revenue of most states are far from what they should be. So it is a holistic thing that will help our country. Now, Tambuwal has supported incidences of state police. So many governors, if not all, they draw money from their state account under what they call security vote. Security vote that they don't account for. They do not even bother to retire. They just draw that money, and it is a huge funnel of wastages and pillaging of the state resources and the state treasury. Now, if you have state police, the incidences of wastages of state resources through security vote will be reduced because you will now see where the money will be channeled. Many people who are against the establishment of state policing structure are only being myopic and unnecessarily political because they believe that the governors would use the state police to hound their opponents at the state levels. It is not enough because the basic essence of the police is not for political vendetta. It is for the security of lives and property of the people, which of course is the basic essence of government. So we cannot sacrifice the need for security of the people on the altar of political expediency or emotionalism that will not affect the majority, the life and welfare of the majority of the Nigerian people. So we 100% have been agitating and are in support of the establishment of state police. But we wanted to go a bit further because many states are unable to take care of their wage bills. Many states. And that's why they say that only about 2 or 3 states in Nigeria are viable. Viability in terms of having adequate resources to pay their bills, civil service bills, healthcare bills, education bills, and every other bill that is waiting on the table of the governor to sort out. Yes, we know that in the midst of all this, a lot of money is being stolen, misappropriated, and taken abroad. But we need to bring more responsibilities to the doorsteps of the state governors so that they will have very limited latitude to steal money from the state coffers. And one of the major advices that we have given is anchored on restructuring of the polity. Now, on the second leg of your discourse, or Tambuwal discourse regarding whether President Tinubu will easily be removed in 2027 or not, he said that if the opposition does not come together in a strong coalition to have a formidable force, that they won't be able to remove the president. And that is the truth. That is the truth, unless we want to live in denial. Because President Tinubu is digging in on a daily basis, even having orchestrating problems for the opposition. And the opposition have been crying that the ruling party APC has been creating problems for them. Except anybody who is not in this country, we all know that a lot of the challenges being faced by the opposition are cost and finance. That finance is important, and finance from the center. And it is because our politicians, a lot of them lack integrity, a lot of them lack the will to do what is right. And that is why it is very easy to get them compromised, even against their own political interests. So how do you solve it? Tambuwal has brought a recommendation that opposition should coalesce, come together, strengthen themselves in order to push hard, in order to galvanize Nigerians. Because at the end of the day, it is the vote of the people that will determine the fate of anybody in 2027. But if they do not come together as prescribed by Tambuwal, they will not be able to galvanize the votes of the people to vote against the interests of Mr. President. But whether Mr. President deserves to be re-elected is dependent on the x-raying of his policies and programs. If the people of Nigeria feel that his government has not brought the expected goodness, expected welfare, expected good governance, and expected ease of life, then they will be in a position to decide one way or the other at the ballot in 2027. But again, and finally, it is important to say that it is only through the ballot that Mr. President can be removed. Any other way will not be constitutional. So while the opposition will be gearing towards removing him, we need to reiterate the fact that it is through the ballot that Mr. President can be removed. And that is by the vote of the people and not by only the wishes of the opposition.
True, Barrister, you are very apt with what you said, but some would allude to the fact that history is repetitive. That is, if we do not correct what happened so as to avert what would, of course, come up in the future. Let's go back to the Second Republic, Barrister. You would remember very well. This is not the first time we're having a coalition. For the 1983 general election, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe of the NPP, wanted to have Obafemi Awolowo of the UPN and Waziri of the GNPP together. They wanted to come together so they can oust the ruling NPN, which of course was the general party. It was big and all that. But it did not work. And because it did not work, NPN, came into power. In less than a year, there was a coup d'etat that happened because of the lopsided malpractices that happened during the election. Like I said before in my opening question, history is repetitive. Do you see that possibly? We do not pray for it. But do you see that happening in 2027 with the coalition happening right now, which we all know, like you rightly said, President Bola Tinubu is really not in tandem to making it work? Do we see a repeat of what happened in 1983 in 2027?
Well, 1983 was a different experience from 2027 because at that era, the lure of the military to jump into the political scene was rife all over Africa. It was an era where the soldiers had very little tolerance to the innuendos of politicians or to the mistakes of political actors, and then they will very easily jump into the fray and then seize power. Even though recently it was experienced in Mali, it was experienced in Burkina Faso, and it was experienced in Niger. But that does not mean that it is as widespread as it was in the 80s. And the experience today is a lot different. the coalition of the 80s was also not as we experience it today. In 2013, 2014, there was a coalition that brought the APC. Some other parties melted into a new, fused into a new party. And they were able to, and they were very united in their approach and in their attack against the PDP, often with large-scale propaganda that even took international dimension. And then at the end of the day, they were able to wrestle power from the PDP. And they did so, essentially because the PDP had a presidential candidate, the then President Goodluck Jonathan, who was not only an amiable leader, but also a leader who professed that he needed a virile democracy and a democracy that will shape the life of the people, who professed repeatedly that his political ambition was not worth the life of a single Nigerian. It was a very big position that President Jonathan took, because before him, there was Cote d'Ivoire, where Alassane Ouattara, there was an election in Cote d'Ivoire, and the president then refused to relinquish power until he was removed after terrible civil unrest that claimed the lives of so many people, and he was taken to I think it was Laurent Gbagbo, not to Ouattara. It was Laurent Gbagbo, and he was taken to international court to be tried for crimes against humanity that he under his watch. So it simply tells you that there was a history of people who refused to hand over after election, especially in Africa. I mean, it's replete. Even in some other parts of South America, there were people who refused to relinquish power. People like Pinochet and the rest of them in Argentina, in Venezuela, and in some other parts of South America. So President Jonathan did what people did not expect that he would do. And that was why President Buhari, up to the last day of his breath on earth, continued to be grateful to President Jonathan, because he didn't expect him to hand over to him. Now, we're having a different scenario, a different environment, and a different sheriff in town. The personality of Bola Tinubu is completely different from the personality of President Jonathan. And then we may not see the same scenario repeat itself. But what is very important and critical? What is very important and critical? I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Henry. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
My question, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, beautiful. So you were talking about the difference between the personality of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and that of Goodluck Jonathan, and why Buhari was surprised that Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was able to hand over power with no argument. Are you saying that if 2027, if there is a shift, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is ousted, he would not relinquish power? Is that what you're stating with his personality?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that in drawing comparison between the two personalities, President Jonathan allowed opposition to foster, to be robust. He allowed opposition to be alive. He allowed opposition to criticize. He allowed opposition to really be given the room to operate in the environment. President Bola Tinubu is not given to such allowance. And that is why the opposition elements are crying that they are being stifled by the government of the day. That is the difference between the personality of Tinubu and that of Jonathan. Jonathan allowed dissent. He allowed opposition. He allowed criticism. He allowed robust democratic engagement. But President Bola Tinubu is not ready to give such room. Today, the opposition parties are crying out loud that they are not only being infiltrated, but they are being intimidated and hounded. Today, there is, in fact, by Monday, El-Rufai and about 7 other people are expected to go and answer police invitation. There was no such invitation under President Jonathan. People criticized him, called him all sorts of names, did all sorts of things against him, and he allowed all that to take place. And at the end of the day, even when the election took place and he read the temperature of the moment, he handed over. These are the differences. So you can call Jonathan a true Democrat. You can call President Bola Tinubu a true politician, and you cannot describe him as a true Democrat. Yes, he's a grand political master, strategist, and a politician, but he cannot beat his chest and claim that he's a true Democrat. Everything around his government has not supported his democratic credentials, but he can be said to be very good in politics.
Are you there, Barrister? Are you there, Barrister Fred?
But very low in democracy and possibly also low in good governance. With you, can you hear me?
It's still taking us back to 1983 because if you see what happened during the elections, it's because of the same thing that we see today happening with the dissent that equally happened in 1983, which didn't see a long-lasting Second Republic. So that is why I keep saying, when we have a leader who is going against dissent, who is not allowing for opposition to do what they should do, don't you think every action leads to a reaction which we do not know the face it would take?
Yes, every action leads to a reaction, and that is why we continue to warn politicians that they should be conscious of their actions, because there could be consequences for their actions, which may also elicit some reactions that may not be positive and some reactions that may not be supportive of entrenching Nigerian democracy. But again, in 1983, the challenges were not only because of lack of allowance to constructive opposition. The challenges were also as a result of the fact that the military was itchy to get to power. And at the slightest provocation of the public, they jumped into the fray. That was what happened in 1983, because all of the things that the politicians were accused of in 1983, the politicians of today have done more than 1,000 times of the ills of the politicians of 1983. When we look at statistics on developmental paradigm of Nigeria, the politicians of the Second Republic were a lot better than the politicians of this Fourth Republic. A lot better. They achieved a lot more. They performed much better than the people of today. Yes, there were incidences of greed, avarice, and messing up of the public treasury, but the level was about 5% of what we are seeing today. Yet, because the dynamics have changed, not only in Nigeria but all around the world, military junta incursion into national leadership is no longer in vogue. The isolated cases in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso cannot be said to be an express example of what is going on today. So we do not expect that the soldiers will come in. I for one, I do not support it. I do not canvass it. I do not even expect it. But I would always ask the politicians to do what is right, because there will be consequences. Because even if the soldiers may not come, the people themselves may rise up in very stout opposition. The kind of revolution that some politicians are asking that it takes place. But of course, the revolution of the mind will start, and then the revolution of the body can follow. And when there is such a revolution, when there is such public outrage, it usually sweeps away any government in power. It has happened in many countries, not only in Africa, but all around the world. So it will be foolhardy of anyone to wait until that the people expect.
All right, that's very apt, Barrister. You actually nailed it right there. And I think this is just about the time we have. I would have wished that we go on and on, you know, and I had wanted to ask you if you thought President Bola Tinubu is consciously allowing for all of these things to happen unnecessarily, because if he had been doing what Nigerians wanted, basics, that's what Nigerians are asking for. Do you think President Bola Tinubu is consciously, you know, part of what is happening to him right now that he would have avoided by doing the right thing? In 60 seconds, please.
Nothing is happening to him. The opposition are ganging up against him, which is normal and democratic. They should gang up against him because his government policies, he has even admitted that his policies have not started yielding the expected dividends. And he has asked Nigerian people to be patient. But 2 years and more down the line, the patience of the people is drying up. And the opposition feels that they will arrange the people behind them to vote him out. What is important is that everything is done within the dictates of democratic principles and the rule of law and the constitutionalism. That is what is important. But President Tinubu should know that it is not a hidden secret that his party and his government are the ones causing problems for the opposition. He has said so himself that he is happy when there is crisis in the opposition. So what it means is that if he's happy when there's crisis in the opposition, it means that he wouldn't mind in few such crises, even where it does not exist. But it's now left for the opposition to be conscious of that fact and then try to hold their ground and guard their loins against such infiltration, such that their intentions for the people will materialize. And not only intention to get power, but intention to deliver good democratic dividends, good governance, and improved welfare for the majority of Nigerian people.
Very well said, Barrister. It's very so germane. A country without opposition is a country that is dictatorial. A country without opposition is a country that is led by tyranny. And that is what is observed in North Korea and other communist countries around the world, where people do not have reasons to belong to the opposition and ask very important questions. That is not where we're coming from in Nigeria, and that is where we hope not to get to. We truly do hope that those in power will do all they should do, ensure that pre-vandalism is not the way. Nigerians are asking for basics, and when that is provided, nobody would have reasons to want to complain. But because there is a deliberate absence of the basics, that's the reason why you see the opposition coming with everything to ensure that possibly the ruling party does not see the light of the day. Thank you so very much, Barrister Fred Nzako. I truly do appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's about the time we have, people. We'd love to say thank you. Please do well to visit us. You can see us at EnterpriseTVNews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at EnterpriseTV7. I am Henry Igwebike. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye from us.